Hello, San Diego Comic-Con watchers. My name is Nick Thomas. I'm a senior editor at Levine Querido. We're a somewhat newly founded independent children's publisher. We have kind of two focuses. We have a focus on publishing previously underrepresented voices, and then also books in translation. And we do everything from picture books to middle grade to young adult to graphic novels to nonfiction. And I have the pleasure of working with the extremely talented Darcie Little Badger.
Hello.
And who are you, Darcie? Please formally introduce yourself.
I'm Darcie Little Badger. I am a storyteller, and that means that I write both prose, like long fiction, short fiction, and also comics. And I tend to work in the science fiction fantasy genre. My debut book, Elatsoe, is coming with Levine Querido. Oh, there it is. Look, I have one too.
I think yours is a little shinier than mine.
Yeah, the art is by Rovina Cai, by the way, and I just have to highlight that because she did such a marvelous job, not only on the cover, but also on the illustrations throughout the book. It is a fantasy mystery. And, oh, I should add, I also have a PhD in oceanography, so I'm a geoscientist too.
BTW. By the way. All right, Darcie, I have some questions for you, so let's dive in. My first question is, so it seems like you're a storyteller you are a storyteller who can participate in so many different mediums, but when were you first exposed to storytelling just generally?
Yeah, and this, I commonly say that I probably heard my first stories before I can even remember them when I was a baby, because growing up, my parents, especially my mother, were always just, they tell me stories. And sometimes this took the form of reading picture books to me, which I loved. They'd read these books of poetry too. But also my mother would tell stories, our traditional stories that you can't necessarily find in books. These are passed down orally from family to generation to generation. So I think that inspired me to want to be a storyteller too.
I love that. And so you have all these other kind of pursuits, right? You have your science, whole thing, comic books. How do those different kind of interests and loves influence your writing?
Oh, sorry, you froze. Ah! I didn't hear the question.
This is the true, authentic Zoom.
Oh my gosh.
No worries.
Yeah.
So you have all these other pursuits, right? Like your science, all your science life, and then also comics and various things. How do those different pursuits and interests inform your novel writing?
Oh, I have to say that I have this, oh, sorry, can we start over? I got distracted.
No worries at all. Your chihuahua?
Oh my God, yeah. I'm sorry, Nick.
No worries at all.
Well, that's the good thing about not doing this live.
Yeah, no, we could totally edit it. So, Darcie,
yeah,
how do other pursuits like your science career, your comic book writing, and whatnot inform your novel writing?
Okay, I just gotta chill. All right. Say that one more time. All right.
Darcie.
Oh,
I kind of want to keep this all in. So but real talk, you have all these other like kind of incredible spheres of your life, like your science career, your comic book writing. How do these different pursuits and your interests inform your novel writing and this particular novel, Elatsoe?
Yeah, so as an earth scientist, I'm particularly interested in things like issues of water quality, phytoplankton, and these seem to be kind of niche interests, but I find them leaking into my science fiction fantasy writing in a lot of unusual ways. For example, when I was an intern as an undergraduate, I was helping somebody do this project where we're charting invasive plant species across the United States. And these are plant species that were brought over typically from another continent, and they're harmful in that sometimes they cause, economic issues, or they could negatively impact the endemic plants that were here before. And in Elatsoe in particular, there's this part of the story where I talk about these invasive monsters, and I find they kind of reflect the same behavior as invasive plants. Specifically, there's these creepy scarecrows that tend to live in these cornfields. And they weren't originally monsters of this continent, but they were brought over somehow. I don't know how. That's a mystery. That's something the characters are actually like really confused about. But they're spreading across the United States, and they're pushing out the monsters that were here in the Americas, you know, before the United States was actually a country.
I've realized I'm like the worst interviewer ever because I forgot the most basic question. Like, give me like a 30-second summary of Elatsoe. Like, give me like the elevator pitch for this book.
Yeah. Elatsoe is about a 17-year-old girl named Ellie. She's Lipan Apache like me. And her cousin dies under mysterious circumstances. The authorities think that it was an accident, but Ellie knows that he was murdered. So she launches an investigation with the help of her friends and family and finds out that her cousin's death is connected with this really creepy town called Willoughby in South Texas. And one unique thing about Ellie is that she has the ability to wake the ghosts of animals, not people, just animals. So she's helped along the way by like a ghost woolly mammoth and also her faithful ghost dog companion, Kirby, who is based off of my first dog, Kirby.
I would say in the Elatsoe character power rankings, Kirby's got to be pretty high up there.
Yes, Kirby could do a lot of things, but fortunately, he's a good dog. So if he was a bad dog, that would be scary.
So what would be, what would a book like Elatsoe have meant to a 12-year-old a 12-year-old Darcie?
Oh my gosh. So I was a big reader. I just read voraciously. I'd say that growing up through elementary school, junior high, high school, reading was really my number one like pastime where I was able just to escape all the difficult things that was going on in my life and just like enjoy myself and enter these wonderful worlds. So I was really into fantasy. But one thing that I noticed is despite the hundreds of books that I read, I never read about a Lipan character like me. And that can be a little bit discouraging when you just don't see yourself anywhere. Yeah. So I think that hopefully young me would have enjoyed this book. I think it would have been important for me, but I don't know. Maybe I would have been picky, but I think I would have liked it.
I think you would have too.
Mm-hmm.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but Rovina Cai, who's this really incredible artist with the full jacket wrap, you can see here, also did some gorgeous chapter header illustrations, I think around 40 throughout the book. And these kind of tell like a little bit of a story within a story. Can you talk a little bit about Rovina's art and then also like how that's interacting with the text?
Yeah, and I have to say that when the process of putting this book together was in its infant stages, and you mentioned that Rovina Cai would be interested to collaborate with me, not only on the cover, but also on these interior illustrations. I was just so happy because I actually knew Rovina's work beforehand. Specifically, she created this image of these two like giant ghostly figures walking through a town that really resonated with me. And it's one of my favorite illustrations out there. So obviously I was excited to work with just this incredible artist. But what I really love is the way she created this interior story that, although it's a separate story that takes place in the past, it involves one of Ellie's ancestors. It connects with the main plot at the end of the book in a very unique way. And I was just so impressed. I mean, I've worked with comic artists before, and you're always impressed by an artist's ability to it's almost like she read the script that I sent her and infused it with just so much life. So I hope you enjoy it. I really love this little illustrated story. Got no words with the picture. Gorgeous.
Yeah, it was it was such a cool thing that you had already, like you had that piece that, I remember that I already saved and all that. And then the vibe that both of you bring as creators, I feel is such a great match. And then I also think you made it very easy, like with your comic book experience. That script you wrote was like the best script I've ever seen. Like, all right, here you go, Rovina. This is perfect.
It does help. One thing you learn when you're writing for comics is just to trust your artist in a lot of ways. So you don't want to like provide a script that is just pages and pages of details, micromanaging everything, you know.
Totally.
That's not what I wanted to do.
And what I also love is that the way you two work, like, it's not like the illustrations are like, you know, here they are, and then they describe exactly what's in the text, or vice versa. Like, they're actually, you know, there are some when you're reading it for the first time, you're like, what the hell is going on here? You know, because it doesn't happen until later, or it's something that's described earlier in the book, or even not at all.
Yes.
That's like a fun thing to do. So Elatsoe, which comes out August 25th, has received 3-star reviews already and counting.
Yay!
And I'll just single out one, Kirkus, that said, "This is a brilliant, engaging debut written by a talented author that seamlessly blends cyberstalking with vampire citizen centers and Lipan Apache stories." I've definitely never read a line like that. This groundbreaking introduction to the fantasy genre remains relevant to Native histories, even as it imaginatively looks to the future. So that's not a question. I'm just saying.
Wow.
I just wanted to say.
I'm just so grateful for everyone who has really read and supported the book. Like, it's not officially coming out until August of this year, but it's received so much support, and I'm just like so grateful for that.
Deservedly so. All right, let's get back to an actual real question. So you draw. So in this story, like, you have this alternate contemporary America, right? Where like every indigenous group is bringing something to the table in terms of like ancestral knowledge or things that they can do. And then every non-indigenous group also has that, right? So like you have Europeans bringing in vampires and stuff like that. So, but you draw this like difference, a really noticeable difference between ancestral knowledge, and then magic in the book.
Yeah.
So can you talk just a little bit about why you did that?
Yeah, I did feel that it was important to really emphasize what is magic, and it's a very specific thing in Elatsoe, in the world of Elatsoe, and what is not magic. And that's because in the real world, when it comes to Native issues, sometimes we are mistaken for magical beings, which is very, and I'm going to give an example of this. This was a little bit notorious for a while. Powwow was defined by a dictionary as a magical ceremony. Well, that's not true. So we are kind of fighting these misconceptions about our knowledge being maybe something derived from magic, or us being, you know, magically connected with nature and stuff. And I did want to make it clear in Elatsoe and in real life, that's not the case. Especially when it comes to knowledge, because it's really incredible how much knowledge about the land, like as an earth scientist, and just about this world in general, my grandmother and great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother knew and taught to us, and sometimes that is almost not appreciated.
Yeah. That kind of leads me into my next one, which is like, and this is just something that I've always felt about your writing. There's such a deep sense of like love and compassion and a sense of family that really is just like, it's everywhere in the text. It threads its way into every part of the story. And
yeah,
I mean, this is kind of I think there's an obvious answer to this, but where does that come from for you as a writer?
Yeah, I say personally, just despite how hard things would get in my life, my family has always been such an important element of where I derive my happiness, where I derive my joy from writing. That was from my father, as well as my mother. And I thought it was important to put that in the book. You don't often see that, not just in connection with Native people, but in young adult books in general. Sometimes I feel like there's not a lot of emphasis on a family's role in the character's adventure. So I thought it would be cool if Ellie's parents played a role, not the main role, but they do help her out throughout it.
One of my favorite parts of the book is like at the beginning where, you know, Ellie's like, look, I really don't think that Trevor, her cousin, was killed in an accident. I think he was murdered. And then, you know, her dad, who's very like sensible and, you know, all this stuff, is like, no, you know, like, let's let them investigate. Let's see. And then I feel like that's a trope you see in a lot of books where it's like, you know, only the teen knows what's up. And then the parent, you know, she has to fight against the parents or whatever for a while, or the sensible adults. And then like right in that scene, the dad is like, nah, like, I believe you. Let's go investigate it. And it's just such a you know, that is one of like probably dozens of tropes and things that you subvert in the book in such a great way.
Yeah, I have to say I'm so fortunate that I did grow up in that supportive family. Yeah, I consider it one of my greatest blessings.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the power rankings for the characters. If there was one or two of the characters from Elatsoe that you could hang out with in real life, who would they be?
The first one would definitely be Kirby because he's a good dog, and was based off of my dog Kirby, who I miss. He was a good boy. It's hard to choose. There's a lot of like fun characters. I guess I would hang out with. Can I choose the whole basketball team?
Oh my God!
At one point
Oh,
in the book, there's a college basketball team, and I just think it would be really fun to like, play a game with them.
totally. Oh my God! I didn't even think about that, and especially
Yeah.
not one of their jackets. They're like the team jackets that they have, or
Yeah.
yeah.
And like I used to play basketball in junior high. I was not great. I was much better at softball, but it's still fun.
I gotta say, it would be tough for me to pass up sixth grade. I'd love to just pick her brain.
Oh my gosh, she's really cool. Okay, actually, so I changed my answer. I would hang out with her first, and then we can all like play basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was, obviously there's a lot like your Lipan identity and native issues are a huge part of the book, but also Darcie is asexual, but Ellie is an main character, and so why was it important for you to make her so and to infuse that throughout the book?
Yeah, this is interesting. So way early in this process, before I even sent the book off to agents or editors, somebody gave me this advice that I did not take, which is a good thing I didn't. They said, if you're going to write a book with an asexual character who also isn't going to have a romance, Ellie is, she's not interested in romance. But they said, don't write young adult, write middle grade. And there's this misconception that young adult readers don't want to read about asexual characters. That's not true. There's plenty of asexual young adults.
Yeah.
But also just young adults in general, they want to read about all sorts of people. It doesn't have to be exactly like them. I am asexual. I am getting married to another asexual native after the pandemic. It makes the world safe to have big gatherings. We were supposed to get married this year, but we delayed that to be safe. So yeah, we're out there, and it would be great to see more people like us represented in books. All sorts of books, not just young adult books, middle grade books, adult books, all the books.
Picture books. Yeah. What bad advice, and I'm very glad that you didn't listen to it.
Yeah, it seemed a bit like, I was like, I know you're trying to help me, but I don't think that's true. That's what I thought.
All right. I had a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. Something I asked you about earlier was the strong anti-cat bias.
Oh, no!
But you have since said that, actually, this is for my next question. Is there anything coming up after Elatsoe?
God, yes. So I have to say, in Elatsoe, there's all sorts of animals, but as...
Yeah, literally the entire, animal world is represented.
They're extinct animals, trilobites. I did not have any cats, which is a big oversight on my part. I do love cats. Like, our family is a dog family. We have a lot of dogs, but we also foster a lot of cats because my fiance is a veterinarian. And, sometimes a little kitten comes in. There's some stories that I wish I could talk about, but I can't because there's going to be some trials going on. But basically, my fiance has saved the lives of many little kittens. So I love cats. And in my next book, I'm going to be sure not only will the main pet be a cat, there will also be 3 distinct other cats in this book. It's kind of this almost 2-world epic fantasy that takes place on Earth and also in the land of like spirits and monsters. And it involves, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Lipan stories, but there are characters like coyotes, but they're coyote people, so they can walk in the bodies of like that look like humans, but they could also be coyotes. So the main cast are peoples like that, different animals, and the main character is a cottonmouth snake. But there's also a human character who's going to be helping them out, and her little friend is a cat. Okay.
Love it. I'm very much looking forward to Elatsoe, but I'm very much looking forward to that book too.
I'm getting closer to finishing that. So.
All right, I think that's about it, unless there's anything else that I've missed that would be cool to talk about.
Nothing I can think of. Just that I really appreciate everything you have done as my editor.
That was very kind of you to say.
Yes.
You feel very, very lucky to be publishing you with this book.
Thank you.
I would say you're emblematic of like the sorts of books that we want to be publishing and the sort of author that we want to be publishing. So it's really our joy and our honor.
Thank you.
And we're going to be doing some sort of signed giveaway around Comic-Con, so that should be exciting. And look out for Elatsoe on August 25th.
Oh yes, all my signatures come with a little smiley face. It's my thing now, so.
I like it. That's good branding.
Mm-hmm. That's my brand. I smile a lot.
All right. Thank you very much. Goodbye, viewers.
Thank you.